Alright, so in this video I'm going to create the rest of the data model here with a couple more tables. Notice how my tabs are piling up across the top here. I can just clean up if I want and close them up. It's not, you don't have to, one thing I do recommend is that you save your SQL statements either as these script files with the SQL extension. Maybe put a folder on your desktop or somewhere and just put everything into there, or you can save them in text files, because a lot of what we do is going to be very repetitive in here. We're going to do lots and lots of insert statements, lots of create table statements, so it's good to be able to reuse your code when possible. So I'm not going to save that one, I'll just close this one up. Okay, so the next one, let me look at our model here. We did the vendor table, that's done. This next one is a little table, it's the item category table, and that's where we're creating the product categories like chocolate powders, chocolate chips, the various methods for selling chocolate. So basically what I'll do is, again, I'm logged in as student 20 here. I'm going to right click the tables, do a new table. Okay, this is a little table. It's going to be the first field here, first column will be category ID. Maybe I'll make that an integer. Okay, how about I make it the primary key by right clicking and set primary key. Okay, I'm not sure if this pane was open in the last video when I was making the other table, but that's the properties pane, and you can access that anytime if you go to right click anywhere in your table and do properties. Okay, so I am going to refer to that in a little while, but basically we have category ID, category name here. Again, no spaces in your column names. And I think I'll do varchar 100 or varchar 50 or something like that. Okay? And I don't think I'll allow nulls on the category name. So I'm going to go ahead and save this. And this is going to be, we'll call it the item, underscore category table, or the category table, but all my insert statements say item underscore category. So we'll do item underscore category. Again, no spaces in your table name. I'll click OK. Alright. And I think I'm going to run a script to insert some records. Let me grab the records. So this is, okay, here we go. I'm going to copy those. And again, I'll go to new query up at the top. And I'm going to paste these in. Let me run it without the use statement up at the top, but again, you might have to do this from time to time. Use database, whatever your database is. But, I just put it there as a comment. If you want to do a comment in your SQL code, you can precede it with 2 dashes. And that turns it into a green comment, which would not execute, but it's still there for you to see. So I think I will execute this. Okay, this is good news if I didn't get any errors. So again, I'm looking over on the left, and I don't see that item category table that I just created, but you know what you have to do at this point. You have to refresh. You know what, if you don't feel like going all the way up here, you can also just right-click on the tables folder and choose refresh. Okay, so there's my item category table if you want to make sure that the records went in there. But this is all the confirmation you need, really. But if I right-click and do select top 1,000 rows, there are the categories, bars and squares, spreads, powders, and so on. Okay? All right, so let me clean up here. I don't think I'm going to save that. And the last table, let's take a look at this. All right, this is the last table. This is the most complex one because we have a couple of foreign keys. Now that I have the category IDs and the vendor IDs, I'm going to add actual inventory items, actual products for sale. And I'm going to link them to their categories, if they're bars and squares, powders, etc., and the vendor IDs, where they're coming from, what vendor distributor is am I linking this product to. So this is the most comprehensive of the tables. We also have a primary key, of course. Every table should have a primary key. One thing we have not done yet. Let me get started on this inventory table here. Okay, so again, over here, I'm going to right-click Tables, New Table. This is going to be the inventory table. I think I'm going to start with this primary key, the item number, all right? So here I go. I'm going to type item number, okay? Or, you know, I think maybe a better name for that column would be inventory ID, but I already have the insert statement, so let's just go with this. And the data type, I think I'll do an integer. One thing I did not show you how to do yet is I'm going to make this the primary key, okay? One thing I haven't shown you how to do is do like an auto number, or what we call a surrogate key. All right. So in the other two tables that we've already created, they had primary keys, but they weren't what we call surrogate keys, where the database is going to add the numbers for you consecutively. In those, we had the IDs were in the insert statements. They were actually put into the table by us, okay? But it's probably more common to use the surrogate key, where you have this auto numbering. So the first item in the table is going to be given number 1, the second item number 2, and so on and so forth. And that's probably a more typical way of doing it, because not only do you not have to worry about the numbers, but when the database is generating the numbers, you know they're going to be unique because they're sequenced. You know they're going to be appropriate values, and so on. So here's how you do an auto number using the GUI tools in SQL Server. I have the row selected. It is the primary key, but that's not enough. That doesn't automatically make it an auto number. It makes it the primary key. But over here, where it says identity column in the table properties, we haven't saved the table yet, which is why you see this generic name, but in the table properties identity column, I'm going to pull this down and choose item number. This is the equivalent of making it, for example, an auto number in Access. That's the surrogate key in Access. This is how you do it in SQL Server using the GUI tools. Okay, so let me move along here. We have the item description. All right, I think I'll make this varchar, oh, I don't know, 100, 200. Okay. And then we have the item cost. And I think, you know what, I think I'm going to make this, we have money, that would be appropriate, but I think a better one in this case is small money. You know, the reason, the small money, it just takes up less space in memory, and the money, the big one, will literally allow you to put a value in there of like up to, you know, in the quintillions of dollars, which we don't need for our little chocolate store. So small money is much more reasonable for most business applications, I would think. So we'll do small money, and then, okay, now we're coming up on the foreign keys. All right, let me bring this up again. These two, the category ID, which is going to reference the category ID in the item category table, and the vendor ID, which is going to reference the vendor ID in the vendor table. So we need to be careful with these. Let's just add them, and then I'll show you how to set up the foreign keys using the GUI tool here. So we'll say category ID, okay, and we'll make this an int, because it's an integer in the other table, and it's in the item category table. So the data types have to match, otherwise you're going to come up against a wall. The vendor ID, also an int, okay, because that is an int in the vendor table. Let me just save this table real quickly. So this is what, the inventory table, okay? Now, foreign keys, okay? I'm going to right-click any one of these columns here, or maybe this category ID, and I'm going to choose relationships. All right, right now there are no relationships set up, so I'm going to do an add. Let's take care of this category ID. That references the category ID in the item category table. So I have to come up with a name for this foreign key constraint. How about, you know, this is too generic. Let's say, I like the FK, let's say FK category ID. Okay. And then, do you see me here? I'm going to click on this area where it says Tables and Columns Specification, and then you have this button. Let's click it, okay? So it's saying, all right, the primary key table, or the table in which category ID is the primary key, is the item category table, okay? And then I come down here, I pull it down, it's category ID, all right? So that side is set up. Now the foreign key table is the table that we're in. I can't change that, but I need to change it here. It's not item number that's the foreign key we're talking about right now. It's category ID. All right. So I am going to click OK. So there's one of the foreign keys. I have to do another one though. We have the vendor ID, same thing. So I'm going to do an add here. Okay, again, I don't like this. It's too generic. We'll say FK, this is the vendor ID, all right. Coming up here to tables and columns specification. And all right, so where is the table in which vendor ID is the primary key? It's the vendor table, okay? And then I have to find it in here. There's the vendor ID. And now the foreign key table is the table that I'm in, the table for which I'm setting up the relationships. But be careful, you have to pull this down and it's choose the vendor ID. So these typically are going to match. I'm not saying that the column names are always going to be the same in both tables, because they don't have to be. But in our examples in this class, that's pretty typical to have the same column name in both tables. So we'll click OK, and so now our foreign keys are set up. Okay? So we have the data model in place. Why don't I go ahead and populate this now with some records. So I'm going to go in here, and this would be the inventory inserts. Okay, I'm going to copy these, okay, and I'm going to again start a new query, paste them all in. Okay, so these are inserts into the inventory table. Now, one thing I want to, and again, we're going to be coding inserts on our own later on in the semester, but they're pretty self-explanatory. I'm saying insert into inventory, item description, item cost, category ID, vendor ID, and these particular values. Okay, the name of the item, the cost, the category ID, the vendor ID, and so on. One thing you don't notice is this guy, the item number. I'm completely ignoring that in my insert statements because he's an auto number, so to speak, or he's a surrogate key. We set him up as the identity column. So SQL Server is going to be handling the numbering for that particular field. Okay? All right, so let me execute this. And this is, of course, a good sign when you don't get any errors. Again, I'm going to refresh over here. And real quickly, why don't I just do a query on the inventory table? Okay, and there are all the records that I've just inserted. And again, see, here's the item number. This is, SQL Server is responsible for those numbers. We did not insert them ourselves. Okay? All right, so that's that.